Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
What is going on, Canes fam? I am Matty Ice. He is Canex, and this is Canes Calling Live. And we have a very special guest for you guys. We got Erik Swoope joining the pod. Erik, how you doing tonight, man?
I am doing fantastic, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome, man. Hey, man, we're really excited to talk to you. But before we get into that, we got to make some money. Talk about our sponsors. Canex,
Yes.
take it away.
Got to pay the bills. Got to pay the bills.
You know how that goes, Erik.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring our video. We recently became brand ambassadors for them. SeatGeek is a ticket app that takes the confusion out of buying tickets. They have a 0 out of 10 score on each ticket, so you'll know if you're getting a good or bad deal. Green is good, red is bad. Plus, our viewers get $20 off their first ticket purchase with our code CanesCallin. Click the link in the description and download the app. Remember, code CanesCallin. Also, if you want to be a SeatGeek ambassador, Team SeatGeek, the link is in the description as well.
Awesome. Great job, Canex. So,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Erik, we handle business. Ready to talk to you, man. I'm excited for this one. You probably have, we were talking about it a little before, the most interesting athletic career path out of like any Miami Hurricane I think we've talked to.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Very generous.
Yeah. So ready to talk about it. So something me and you have in common, though, both from Southern California. I'm interested in finding out how you ended up at Miami. But funny story, we were talking about it beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I have a loose connection to you. I actually somehow know a neighbor of yours. So, you know, small world. Of course, we were saying the one guy that's from California that went to Miami, I somehow have this random connection to. So funny as it is, man.
Yeah.
So grew up in Lake Elsinore. You went to a school by the name of Harvard Westlake.
Correct.
I know that school because I'm from here. A lot of famous people went to that school, and I think Jason Segel went there. The Gyllenhaals. I think even Mark Harmon. I'm a huge NCIS fan, so
good one. I actually like that one. But
oh, really?
For it, yeah.
But what was it like going to a school where I feel like, you know, people that whatever they're passionate about, they really hone in on that at that school, you know? What was it like going there? Was it like a culture shock? How was it for you?
Yeah, it was exactly that. It was a massive culture shock walking into a place where, you know, at 14 years old, you have no idea what up from down is. And then you meet all of these talented individuals. And the cool thing about that school is everyone had a skill, a very unique skill. And sports was the thing that, you know, was my language. But to some, they were creating apps before I even knew what an app was. They were heading up the rocket science team at UCLA as a high school kid. I mean, like things that would just blow your mind. So my sports journey just felt like the tip of the iceberg for some of my classmates. And the best part, I'd say, all in all about going to Harvard Westlake was if there was something you wanted to do, you were fully embraced. And, you know, kind of going through those rough stages of kind of figuring out the early bits of your identity, knowing that you have people that are really pulling for you and then your classmates have the same mindset. I literally just got back from a wedding in Mexico with a lot of my friends from my high school, and we were reflecting on that. Like, it's amazing that we've all come this far and we've still, you know, we're still so early in our professional careers, but we all had that instilled in us that if there's something we want to do, we can do it.
Absolutely. So we referenced this, at the beginning, right off the bat. You're from Southern California. How did you end up a Miami Hurricane? How did that come to fruition?
Yeah, that getting to Miami was a bit of an unpredictable journey, which I think that theme is going to go as we continue through this interview. But my dream was to play in the ACC.
Okay.
At the time, my dream schools were basically anyone who was good. I wanted to prove to myself, from being, a kid from Southern California, that I can hang with the best in the country. And when I was going, early through my recruitment journey with high school, I kind of blossomed my junior and senior year. And I had caught the eye of Frank Haith and his staff. I think it was going into my senior year, and had a huge prove it moment actually going into my second semester of my sophomore year, tournament down in Palm Springs. End up garnering their attention, start scoring 30 plus points a game. And as I started to do research in University of Miami, I actually knew nothing about them because, in SoCal, USC was the claim to fame, and you had Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart, DeMar DeRozan, OJ Mayo. I mean, the list goes on. UCLA was flourishing at the time too. So I did my research, and it was a number of things, from the fact they were top 50 academically. It was the most diversity that I had seen of any, Power 5 school. I actually committed before I got there because I just was so thrilled about everything on paper. And when I looked at the team and the dynamics, I felt I had something I could offer. And I committed, and then a week later took my visit just off timing. And I had zero regrets. I knew I made the right decision. I knew it was going to challenge me. And I think, which I pat myself on the back as a 17-year-old, because I didn't want to go to the opportunity that was going to be the perfect fit. I wanted to go to the place where I had to learn about myself in order to be at my best. And I think having graduated from there, I got exactly that.
Yeah. And so what were some of the biggest adjustments for you, coming from Southern California? I've been to Miami one time for a football game, and I feel like life is just completely different there. The weather is different, very humid. What were some of the biggest differences for you coming from Southern California?
I mean, I describe Miami as like you take Santa Monica, Vegas, and South America and put them all in one place. And
That's so funny.
That's not as close as I could get to describing what Miami is like. But a funny story. So my freshman year, of course, I took my visit, at the peak of the year. It was early spring. The weather was nice. It was beautiful on campus, And I get there in the peak of summer, and I didn't know about, what it's like to be in the South in the summer. So for those who haven't been to Miami, it gets to north of, mid 90s. The humidity, you can almost grab the atmosphere and throw it at somebody. And it rains hard 3 times a day for a short period of time, but like the most rain I had ever seen in my entire life. So let's just say it was a huge culture shock, and to get on campus in its summer session. So it's just us, football, track, and field. I think we're the only 3 sports that were there. And everyone that I'm meeting, kind of, similar to Harvard Westlake, is very dominant. They have these similar stories of these amazing feats that they crossed in order to get this opportunity. So the imposter syndrome came in full force.
I got you. So let's fast forward a little bit. Coach L takes over the program. I think it was your second year.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you have like a certain story about Coach L, obviously still at Miami, that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was just the way the staff handled connecting with all of us. We were coming off a bit of a bittersweet year. The way we found out about the transition of our coach was so sudden that we were all kind of like, where do we go from here? What do we do now? Because we felt that we had left a lot on the table after my freshman year. And the coaching search was very long, or felt very long at the time. So when we got him, and we'd all were familiar with the George Mason story of taking the team to the Final Four, beating these amazing teams. And, kind of talking at the time, my roommate was Ryan Brown, Rafael Jury, and Justin Heller. We were all same class. And I just remember us every time we heard a little, notion about the coaches, we're like, oh, maybe. But then when we heard it was Coach L, we're like, okay, nobody's transferring. We're gonna ride this out, and we think he's gonna be the best thing coming for us. And he turned out to be exactly that.
Yeah, and you feed right into the next question I had, because obviously that 2012-2013 season, I think it was probably the best season in Miami Canes basketball history, reaching the Sweet 16, the ACC tournament. Obviously, when you're in the off season, like before the season starts, you guys, you think as a team that you're going to be successful no matter what. But was there like an extra thing that stuck out that made you realize how good this team could be?
Well, that particular year, the part that kind of gets overlooked is how we started. We actually had a horrible beginning to our season. So I'm going to circle back to your previous question and tie it in, but Coach L has a lot of philosophies, a lot of systematic ways that he likes to approach a season, especially starting with the off season. We had lofty targets, but things like stuff in the weight room, just fundamentals that we wanted to connect with. And the first year was kind of a crash course. We had just gotten Shane Larkin, and he was still kind of shy coming out of his shell. So we were noticing that, like, oh yeah, the stuff that Coach L talks about, even though it's like kind of ad nauseum, it's very redundant, some of it really makes sense. And then when we got to that next year, we're like, okay, let's do this. We're going to hone in. We're going to buy in. Like, let's make this happen. So we had a great off season. And then our exhibition game against, I'm blanking the name of the school, but I know they were D2. They beat us by like 30. And then 2 games later, we played Florida Gulf Coast before we knew that they were like Lob City. They they just destroyed us. They rushed the court on us. Then we go to Hawaii. We lose the buzzer beater to Indiana State, and we get just pummeled by Arizona. So we're like, this is going to be the worst. And then you transition that. So basically, we got back from that tournament. We were playing UCF back when they had Michael Jordan's son. We have a great, we have a great game there. And then even though it was just one game, something changed in us. It was like we needed the Hawaii trip. And then all of a sudden it was just like wins. And then we looked up and we're ranked. And then we beat Duke by 20 plus. We beat Carolina by 20 plus. All of a sudden, anyone in South Florida wants to be at our games. And before, we said our home court advantage is you play in silence, just because we hadn't earned our fans. So it was just such like this, it happened so fast that by the time the season was over and we're in the Sweet 16, it was like, what just happened? We were great. Like, what the heck just happened?
I know. I think there was one point that the team was on like a 15-game win streak or something like that.
Right. And it was wild.
It's so funny because there's some similarities to that team, and I think this year's team, I don't know how much you keep up with like this year's team, but they had won like 9 in a row. They started off, I think, like 3 or 4-0 in conference play. And the only time that had happened was that 2012-2013 team. I mean, obviously this season's still going on, so we don't know, how this is gonna end up. But it's crazy, man. You're part of that history, that historical team, man.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and so, but I really wanted to shift gears. I wanted to talk about your senior season, because I think leading up to your senior season, you were definitely more of like a role player, you would say, probably, right? 100%. And so your senior season, though, like there was like a midway point, I feel like, where the second half of the season you started, really cracking the rotation. I think you started most of the games as well, or a good amount of them. Yeah. What kind of changed for you during that half?
I'm just naturally a private person, but that year, having experienced what we experienced the previous year, and Coach L's very big on senior leadership, I wanted to kind of take that messaging into my own hands. So actually, that offseason, I lost 20 pounds. I started training harder than I'd ever trained in my entire life, and was more committed to basketball and just to my team than I really had ever understood I could be. So as I was kind of going through the year, we had brought on some new talent because we were very uncertain about how we were going to go. And to your point, I was a role player, still trying to earn my keep. And we played a tournament actually in Anaheim. And
I remember that.
Yeah, so
I went to a couple of the games.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was against like Fullerton.
Yeah.
There's some other schools as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So that tournament, I'll say my opportunity, my playing time was kind of up and down, and it made me really reflect because that was the first time a lot of my family was able to see me play, and my opportunity was limited, quite frankly, and it crushed me. And the biggest thing that when I look back at it was that had I been holding myself accountable for the things I really wanted in my own personal journey. And we came back from that trip and I had set up a meeting with Coach L and we had a very deep discussion on, look, I understand it's my senior year. That's not why I'm putting this pressure. It's just because I personally at the time felt our team wasn't meeting our potential. And if there was a way that I could be a driving force to make that happen, I wasn't asking for playing time. I was just asking for an opportunity to try and prove that to him. And it was the first time I'd say in my college career I really like stood up just for me. I was a very team-oriented guy. I could really care less about what was going on in my career as long as we were winning. And I understood that if I wanted to continue to play, that this was going to be a huge moment for myself. So I took matters into my own hands. Coach L gave me the opportunity, and I earned my playing time and was able to prove to my teammates and to the coaching staff that I could help us win games in major moments.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And you finish up that last year. I didn't know this, but you actually majored in economics.
I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's going through your head, that last season? Are you thinking like, I want to play professional basketball, maybe like overseas, try for the NBA? Do I want to, just stop my athletic career and, from 9 to 5 it, or what was the mindset?
So my mindset was I wanted to play overseas. I understood
Okay.
that with the trajectory of the NBA and my playing style, my current abilities, I could shoot for the NBA, but that was not realistic. And it was a hard conversation, but I understood that's just the reality of it. So I had 100% intentions to play overseas. I felt like, again, after that stretch, that like, hey, I've found something, and I think I can make this work. And then again, I got to go somewhere else and earn it. So that's where my mindset was fully. I said, I have my degree. I'll use it, when I get there. But right now I'm going to continue to push it because my body felt great.
Mm-hmm. And obviously that didn't happen. So fast forward, end of the season, you go to Coach L's office and he basically, you can tell this story better than me. You were there. He tells you, hey, the Denver Broncos want to have a tryout for you, right?
Yeah.
How does this all happen?
Okay, so what happened was we lost, I believe it was to NC State, second round of the ACC tournament.
Yeah. And
so we actually, so we were in Greensboro. So we had the meeting with all the seniors actually back at the hotel before we flew home to Miami.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we went because there was just 4 seniors. So we each had our our meeting with the coaching staff. So then on the flight back was basically like, they took our information and said, okay, let's see how we can help them with the transition out of college. So it was on the flight back that I sat with Coach L and, we're having a follow-up discussion. He thinks going overseas is a good idea, giving me the rundown. And then he ends the conversation with like, so I also have to tell you this odd thing kind of came up through one of our coaches that's been, being contacted. I'm like, shoot, what you got for me? And that's when he said, so a scout from the Denver Broncos had been in contact with us kind of like right around that moment that I started to get a little bit more playing time. I had gotten on SportsCenter a number of times for a bunch of lobs. And I think that's kind of how I garnered the attention of the NFL. And he says, a scout from the Denver Broncos would like to take you through a workout. And they said they want to see if you have football traits. And I laughed in his face. I literally I was like, actually, let me say this. I laughed and then I responded, they know I don't watch football. I don't know football. I never played football. Like
I went to a football college, but that's about it.
Yeah. I went to a football school and I didn't even know that I was going to a football school. I found that out when I got there. So I'm like, they understand like I'm as green as they come, right? And he's like, yeah, but they've been reaching out to us like on I think it was either a bi-weekly or a monthly basis. Very insistent that they want to speak with you. And I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to think about that. So I literally went home, and I was living with my older brother who was getting his master's at Barry's University down in South Florida. And I told him, and he was elated. He's a big football fan. So he's like, dude, you got to do this. Like, this is the great. So I will say, I'll give my credit to him because he was the one that pushed me to take that chance and take that first workout.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, I got to tell you too, like, I'm not trying to take any credit or anything. And like, I'm sure you're going to hate hearing this too, because I know how basketball players think. I played all my life, coached in high school and stuff. When I remember specifically watching you play, and I was like, this dude is so like explosive. So like the way you dunk the ball, and I like, there's some dudes that just play bigger than how they are, right? You're 6'5", right?
Yeah,
I thought you were like 6'8", 6'9". The way you were dunking, I was like, oh my God, dude, this guy is a beast. And obviously your body type, your basketball players are lengthy. They're skinnier, you're built. Yeah, you were not. You said it. You lost like 20 pounds like your senior season, right?
Yeah.
And you're always a beast in the weight room, I'm guessing, setting all the high benchmarks. But I just remember watching, and you're gonna hate me saying this, thinking like, dude, this guy, we could use him on the football field. Like, what's going on? Like, you know what I mean? Because basketball players hate playing with football players on the court, right? Is that not true?
That is 100% true.
But like, just, I know I'm not really going anywhere with this, but essentially, like, was there anyone like when you were playing basketball that was like, hey, you should be playing football? Like, why aren't you playing football? You know what I mean?
Every day. It was every day. I mean, virtually every day. I mean, when I got to Harvard Westlake, the first people that met me after I said hi to my basketball coach was football coaches. I mean, every year they're like, tryouts are coming up. And then when I actually originally committed to University of Miami, I don't know who, I don't remember, it's been so long, but it was written that I was committing as a two-way athlete. And again, as a basketball player, that's like highly offensive at the time. So I was like really rubbed the wrong way. So actually, like my very first interview on campus, I was like, let me just make this like really straight. Football's out. So whoever said that, like, delete it and never say that again. But it was that. Another random story, when I was in high school in Southern California, there's a lot of awesome places to like pick up basketball with a lot of the current or former NBA players. And coincidentally, Keyshawn Johnson was playing at this rec league in Calabasas, California, and he was my matchup, and we were going at it. And just after the game, he pulled me aside and was just like, son, you're playing the wrong game. And I was just like, yeah, sure, dude. Everyone says that to me. And, just being arrogant as a high school kid. But man, was he correct. And between that, and there was some sprinklings when I was at Miami, but everyone understands when you get to the collegiate level, guys are trying to push for the pros. So I didn't get pulled too hard, but the conversations, let's just say when I walked around the football guys, I felt very welcome.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that a little bit because I had seen something. So was it true that like after you were done with basketball, I don't even know if this was possible, that you were trying to maybe play football for the university when you had started training, for football?
Yeah. So to give a little backstory, my biggest mentor when I first started was Jimmy Graham, the guy who had done exactly what I was trying to do.
I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah. So he had some prior experience, obviously, but we connected my freshman year, his rookie year. He came back during his bye week and was just hanging out with some of the guys that he, had played with that were still there. Adrian Thomas, Julian Gamble, Daquan Jones, a couple of the guys, Reggie Johnson. So I bumped into him in the training room and we kind of hit it off. It was real just simple because he was meeting those guys. And then when I was making this transition process and needed to get access to football training, my athletic trainer, Wes Brown, he passed along my number to Jimmy, and that's where we were able to connect. And early in that conversation, he strongly suggested, talk to the university first, because what I'm doing is you're going against grown men. These are the kind of people that they don't care about your background. If you're out there, you're a target. So you need to understand what you're, getting yourself into. And if there's an opportunity where you can play for the U and do what you need to do and kind of learn before the real bullets are flying, then, try. So that is what I did. I did try to reach out to the staff, the Al Golden staff at the time. And this wasn't the right fit. And, no disrespect or anything to them. I totally understand that they had what they had, and I was trying to be a late ad. So.
You can disrespect Al Golden all you want on here. we can let's just clear things up. You can do that. It's totally okay.
Quite all right. Matter of fact,
or if you don't want to, we can.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you guys because he gave a lot of my good friends some cool opportunities, but I understand that for the University of Miami and the records and all that stuff.
Understood.
I understand he's not everybody's fan.
Understood. So I want to know, how was it going from a guy who never played football to going from playing, high level collegiate basketball? How was that transition over to football? I mean, how?
It was like, imagine essentially like being dropped off in another country and expected to be a CEO. That's the easiest way to put it, because the grace period was about a day. Literally, I took my last final, I graduated, I signed with the Colts, and after the draft as a free agent, it was like that Sunday. And like Monday morning, I was in Indianapolis, and I thought I was going, because again, I just didn't know what I was getting. Literally signing my last
right.
I thought I was going to like sign a contract, shake a couple hands, do a physical evaluation, come back, and then like go later. I didn't know I was going for a 10-week off-season program. I packed a week's worth of clothes. Like, no one told me anything. I had just signed with an agent, didn't really know what that meant. And I got there, and these guys were pros. I'm a part of one of the Colts like larger rookie classes at the time, with a lot of free agents that like had draftable talent. So it was earth shattering. That everyone's walking around. I'm now taller than everyone. I was shorter than everyone, but they're all wider than me, and they speak this language that I don't know how to speak. And half the people are overwhelmed, meaning the rookies, because they're all adjusting the pro style. And then the vets, they're kind of like, oh man, here we go again. And it was just like so many things were happening. And another story I always share that I found so interesting was that was the first time meeting athletes who were on the tail end of their career. So meeting guys that are trying to decide, do they still want to do this? Everyone I had been around had been shooting for the stars in terms of they want to get to this moment. So it was very weird to be in a locker room and, let's say 10, 20, 30% of the guys are like, I think I got another year or two in me. It was just so many things were happening so fast. It was wild.
That's crazy.
I can imagine it's like going into a foreign country. I mean, because basketball language and football language, like playbook, has got to be like almost night and day, and probably a whole lot thicker.
Okay, to put in perspective, Coach L, I would say, in contrast to most universities, ran a fair amount of plays, right? Not quite like a Harvard system where it's literally very systematic, but I think some of our most complicated games we hit like, I'm gonna say maybe 15 to 18 plays, which like that's a lot for a basketball game.
Yeah.
The average year's NFL install, even just the day one install of training camp, just one day, give or take 80 to 120 plays. Yeah. And I would say Indianapolis, when I was there, relative to some of the other franchises, we were in the upper echelon of complicated playbooks, but we were not number one. So we were like, mid to upper tier. So that, again, that's just one day. That's just like base offense, middle of the field. We're not even getting into like situations and all that other stuff. So most of my rookie year was just trying to understand what words indicated a run versus a pass. Not even what the play is, just what meant run, what meant pass. It was very overwhelming.
So
I can only imagine.
We kind of talked about the physical like differences,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so interesting to me because I feel like a lot of basketball, it's so mental, and it's a lot about like your confidence, right? I mean, you're not going to be in the NBA if you don't have confidence in your abilities. So going from a sport where you've played all your life to a sport where you've never played at all, I feel like even in football, you got to be confident, with how you play and stuff. How do you have that confidence when it's a sport like you haven't played at all, right?
Honestly, I think being naive was almost my superpower at the time, just because everyone was telling me, I didn't know what I was seeing. So everyone was telling me, hey, look, man, what you're doing, not a lot of people can do. I'm like, well, I'm aware logistically how that works. But I'm just saying, in terms of what am I doing on the football field that's going to separate me from the guys I'm competing against for playing time? Even my own counterparts in the tight end room were letting me know, like, you just need to study. That is literally the only thing you need to do. Get your work, eat right, change your diet for football, but you just need to study. That's the main thing. And so I just tried to hone in that and kind of try my best to not look around at what everyone else is doing. It's really hard to do when you're doing it at a level where the whole world's watching all the time. But with the privilege of being on a practice squad, I was able to go against the starting defense for 17 weeks for basically 2 years before I played my first game. So by the time, and also add in 8 preseason games. So by the time I stood on, the football field and actually wore a Colts uniform to play in a regular game, I had so many bang up reps, doing it wrong, doing it right, making a mistake, dropping passes, misreading blocks and all that stuff that, I genuinely felt like I can do this. I've been going against the starters. I know what they look like. I know how they bait me. Now I just need to figure out like what a pressure situation feels like. Because, in practice, not everybody's going 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a very swift and alarming feeling when you're like, why is, this guy I've been running circles around, all of a sudden it's winning time and I can't stop him. That took a lot of time, and that was the fun of the journey.
Yeah, there's practice speed and there's game speed, right?
Yeah, there's a big difference.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to backtrack a little bit. You end up on the Colts as an undrafted rookie free agent. We talked about that, but it felt like almost like a perfect match. And I think this is where you would consider like, you going to Miami as kind of a blessing, because there's a lot of Miami connects that were a part of the organization at the time, right? There was Coach Chadinsky. I think Coach Roberts was there, and both of them, I think they both actually played tight end at Miami.
They did. Alfredo was the starter and Chubb was the backup.
Yeah. And they obviously, the franchise had a history of converting, former basketball players playing tight end, right? The tight end position. How much of that was like a match made in heaven, and how much do you think it helped your development as a football player?
So honestly, that was the conversation I used to have with Jimmy Graham a lot when I was starting to garner some different attention and looking at the teams that, had interest in me. The Colts, even Chuck Pagano being the head coach, he was an intern at University of Miami. There were so many folks actually at the time that it had either been with Miami, had ties to Miami, and Chud in specific. After I did my first workout with one of the scouts for the Colts, he was contacting me and saying, look, I was on the staff with Antonio Gates in San Diego. I saw him when he knew nothing, and I taught him basically a lot of the nuances so that he could be at his best. So having him, he was actually one of the most instrumental people for me, because I used to see him every off day during the regular season, and literally to the point we went like, there's 11 people on offense, there's 11 people on defense, and we had this huge 3D simulator in Indy, kind of like playing Madden essentially.
Oh wow.
And you can set up coverage with disguises, and like he taught me all the bare bones, and then he would actually sit with me and go through my practice squad tape. And we would go over my coverage recognition, my footwork, and all that stuff. Because, during the regular season, the staff doesn't have that much time to allot, especially to guys that are on the practice team. So, yeah, if it wasn't for University of Miami, Indianapolis Colts wouldn't even been an option. And then the fact that I got there and got a chance to be around Frank Gore and Reggie Wayne and Andre Johnson and all these different greats from the U, I also felt embraced in the locker room, and they made me feel very welcome. And then I, of course, had to earn my keep. But, when you have some like the greatest of all time in the locker room saying, like, this guy's good, it helped.
I bet it does. Yeah.
That's literally what my next question was going to be, you know, because I mean, you referenced it. Frank Gore was there. You brought up Andre Johnson. I completely forgot that he was there his last couple years, I believe,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
what was it like? You know, I know you answered it a little bit, but what was it like being around these dudes that all went to the U, and like, do you feel like you joined that fraternity, you know, that brotherhood almost?
I'll say the way it started was that training group I brought up earlier. So
Yeah.
the training group, for those that don't know, I'm not sure if it's still going just because I've been a little bit removed. But at the time, it was ran by Jonathan Vilma and Andrew Swayze, who was the strength coach at the time. It included Jimmy Graham, DJ Williams, Duke Johnson, Olivier Vernon, Santana Moss, Reggie Wayne, Andre Johnson. I mean, the freaking list went on. So just the fact that they let me train with them, like, I felt like I have no business being here, and they all, in their own unique ways, tried to help me in some way. And so then being teammates and getting a chance to be with them through the grind, it was like I always had that, you know, these group of big brothers to kind of help me to understand, like, why am I going through what I'm going through and how can I do it better? So I would get all these little nuggets that, you know, you don't hear about. Hey, you should start cutting weight now because the weather's coming down. You know, just little stuff like that. Like, this is how you stay on your game. Hey, your studying needs to kind of peak right now because guys are, you know, in that pre-playoff lull. Like, it's just like all these little nuggets that, you know, in the locker room, that's where they say, you know, so many of the guys, that's what they miss when they walk away, because you had people that genuinely had your back. So being around them, I was definitely starstruck, because prior to my whole football journey, really the only person I knew of was Andre Johnson, just because between him and Megatron, that my brother used to joke, like, yeah, if you played football, you'd be like one of them. And it's just because he's big fans of them. And I'm like, sure. And then to actually be in the locker room with those guys, and then so many of the other greats, yeah, it was just like, it's so surreal, so hard to like believe, you know, this is actually happening. And then when I caught my first pass, which was against the Houston Texans in Sunday Night Football, I checked my phone and it's the guys. All the guys from Miami are texting me. I'm like, I'm a football player. Like, the football player is telling me I played football well today. Like, this is actually happening right now.
That's so awesome. So I got to know then too, like, was your brother, like, when this all happened and like you're around all these Miami guys, was he like losing his mind? Like, saying like, hey man, you gotta hook it up. Let me meet some of these dudes.
No, my brother's a very humble guy, and he's a very, very stoic person. So he was just like pushing me to get the most out of this. He's been my biggest supporter when I can't imagine being an older brother and your little brother is kind of cracking into the journey that he had dreamed of for himself. He played collegiate football at a D3 level, or excuse me, D2 level. And I always and forever will be thankful for him having my back, even down to my basketball days, you know, in high school. Again, being an older brother, you know, you kind of beat down on little brother, keep him smaller than your personality. But he, from as far as I can remember, was my biggest fan and the one person that would always hold me accountable. So when all this stuff happened with football, he was the first person that was like, look, you need to take this serious. You know, it's time to go to bed. Let's get focused and all that stuff. So anytime I can tell him thank you, I sincerely mean it, because he's been everything for me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, man. And so like through this whole transition too, like when you first got into football, I don't know, maybe in a practice or game, like what was your like welcome to professional football like moment? I really want to know this one. I'm sure there's a funny stories.
First day of training camp. So first day of training camp, because in the NFL in the off season you don't wear shoulder pads. So I was getting the hang of wearing a helmet. My neck had never been that sore in my life, but I was getting the hang of that. So I'm like, okay, I know that part. First few days of camp, excuse me, it's like day 3. I'm not gonna say day 1, but day 3, you're still in helmets because they let you acclimate before you put pads. So day 3 is padded, and I had to have my best friend and teammate Jack Doyle show me how to put my shoulder pads on. And the very first drill we had was one-on-one pass protection. So I'm going against Eric Walden, Robert Mathis,
Oh my god.
a laundry list of, let's just say, some badass dudes.
Right.
And my first moment, I went against Eric Walden. And for those who don't know him, he is known for, we used to call it a cobra strike, where he hits you with his foot, like foot, hat, hands all at the same time. And to almost anyone who goes against him, it's basically like getting a haymaker to your forehead. And I could tell that the guys were very excited to go against the young basketball player. And of course, who's up first? This guy. And Eric hit me so hard in the face that I think it wasn't until maybe the end of practice my ears stopped ringing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
I'll never forget that. It felt like I swallowed my mouthpiece. Like it was insane. And on top of that, excuse me, and this is a little bit of a side note, but I just want to share this because I really care about him, is Coach Bogano during training camp, to get guys excited somewhere during the practice, and not every day, but occasionally, would just call some random one-on-one drill, whether it was like run blocking or red zone routes to end practice. And every single time I knew he was calling me. And I knew it because he believed in me and he wanted to challenge me. So he did that for me a number of times. And I had some really awesome opportunities to prove that I was willing to take on the physicality of the NFL. And I bring that up because I actually bumped into him yesterday in the airport, and I hadn't seen him since we lived in Indy. And it was just it was just the biggest nostalgia moment. We were sitting in a tarmac headed out of Mexico, and he flagged me down, and just a wave of emotion took me over because he was the person that like allowed me to become a football player. So yeah, with that hard hit and those memories of just being the chosen one, essentially, for all the like college-esque drills that came up in the NFL, those were definitely like some early stage highlights for sure.
What's like, your first game, what's like the memory you had? Was it your first snap, the first catch you had? Like, what's the first like in-game memory that
I've got
that like always sticks with you?
Yeah, I got a couple for you in terms of first. So my first preseason game was against the New York Jets. And again, coming from basketball, I think the biggest stadium I played in was a Carrier Dome, but it's a little bit misleading because it is a football field that's sectioned off. So it's 30,000 people, but I'd probably say the Dean Dome in North Carolina was like the largest venue I'd played in front of, about 22 to 25,000 people. MetLife is like 70. And even at a preseason game, like a sprinkled preseason game, was probably like 40. And I was just in that stadium, if you've ever been there, like the way the stands are, they're very vertical. So when I come out for warm-ups and I'm like, I'd never had gone through a pregame warm-up for football. I didn't even know, like they had times on a whiteboard of like, receivers go out at this time and there's a warm-up and then some passes and pat and go. And like, I know the words, but I was still so green. I'm like, I don't even know where to line up. Like, I don't even know where to stand. Like, where do I put my hands? It was like literally like all like. And then I got in that game. It was like late in the third quarter, and we were like backed up on like the 3 and had a big run all called my way. And I was trying to remember, like, is it a right play? Is it a left play? Like, who am I supposed to block? Like, just seeing it on tape. So I fondly remember my first time getting in a stance, hearing a cadence at MetLife was amazing. And then my first catch, again, it was another preseason game, was against the New Orleans Saints. So I was playing in front of Jimmy, even though he was barely playing. But it was just cool that my first catch was in front of my mentor, who we had just finished training together. And then we got to talk after the game about like, I'm doing it, man. I'm doing it.
That's awesome.
Grinding. So those were two like ones I'll just never forget.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
So what was it like to catch your first touchdown pass? I mean, you're coming from, like I said, a guy who never played before. You're all of a sudden you're in the NFL. You got the quarterback throwing you the football and for a touchdown. I mean, how did that feel?
So Jimmy and I used to always talk about is dunking on someone better than a touchdown. And he said, when you score a touchdown, you will have an experience you've never had before. It's like he had dunked on plenty of people. I've dunked on a lot of people. And he's like, look, a touchdown, it's so hard to score. When you do, and whether you're home or away, it will literally change your perception of sports. And I'm like, all right. So my first touchdown was against the Minnesota Vikings, and I believe it was like week 12 or week 13. It was late, and it was my first season active. And I had started to, make a couple plays, but this particular week, we were up in Minnesota. It was, luckily we were playing inside, but it was like minus 40 or something crazy. Like it was like a blizzard alert when we were leaving the game. But every game up to that point, I've been very anxious, right? It's my first time playing. I actually started a handful of games, and there's just so much information that changes on the fly as you go. And going into that game, when we actually got to Minnesota, I used to do this really rigorous kind of like review session of my studying of the plays. And for some reason that week, I just felt good about everything. So it was the first time when we got in, like I didn't do my studying. I was like, I'm gonna just take a walk, kind of just like get grounded. And I hadn't really done that for myself. And I was like, look, I know the stuff. So when he calls the plays, he'll call them. And at that time I had earned my own position group. So we had like, I think at the time our personnels were numbers. So it was like 11 swope and 12 swope, which was 1 tight end or 2 tight end. And I had like 6 plays. And Andrew at the time was very adamant that if the opportunity came up, he wanted those plays called. So I was like, look, I'm not going to put stress on it. Just do what I need to do. So yeah, I went and walked around the Mall of America, just went to bed, had a nice dinner. And then I got to the game. And yeah, just everything felt right for some reason. And then we get into that drive. It was Adrian Peterson's first game back. So the Viking fans, the packed house, they're screaming loud, and they had screamed all season. And at that time, we were not a favorite to win that game, but for some reason, we were just kicking their tail. So I get in. First play I had 3 plays. We called all 3 of them on the drive, and the third one I scored on. So the first one was a 1-step slant, 3rd and 4. So it's not supposed to go my way. They were in cover 2 for all our football fans. So basically there's somebody very nosy standing right in front of me. And Andrew chooses to throw me the pass. I catch it for the first down. I think I subbed out, and my tight end coach was like, if you go back in, do what you need to do because Andrew's trying to feed you.
That's beautiful.
Bam, I go right back out there. We call another play. I shake the draws off of Eric Kendricks for like another play. And then the next one we call a seam, and I catch my touchdown in the back corner of the end zone. I could barely, I had a celebration in mind, forgot it. T.Y. Hilton used to always say this. He's like, when you score a touchdown, I bet you won't do your celebration. You're going to forget it. I'm telling you, you're going to forget it. So the moment I score, instantly forgot it. It was like every single one of my teammates, every coach, they knew all the things I had gone through just to get to this, even having an opportunity at this moment, let alone to catch my pass and make my play. Every single person gave me so much love and so much excitement. And it was just like, I didn't stop like almost shaking until I got home that night. Cause I was just like, It happened. It happened. It happened. I did it. Wow. Like it was, to this day, it still gets me a little shaky. Like it was really amazing. It was really amazing.
That's awesome, man. And man, it's really cool talking to you about all this stuff, man, because you have probably the most interesting journey of any person we've ever talked to on this show. So we really appreciate you talking to us. I got one more question for you, and then we got some like quick hitter ones. Okay. I know we already went over the time limit that we had talked about, but I'm sorry, but this is amazing. So I appreciate it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So just through this whole journey, changing sports, changing to football, what was like the biggest thing you learned about yourself?
I think overall just reminded me that my comfort zone is being out of my comfort zone. Like getting into Harvard Westlake, didn't know what I was walking into, but I all of a sudden found myself having more internal joy than I'd ever had. Getting to University of Miami, it was a huge swing. I literally, like I said, I committed before I got there. And I just was wanting to take a chance and see if I could handle myself. So the NFL was the same way. And it's just been this constant reminder that like, we have to live life to the fullest. Like we just don't know what's coming next. And all those different moments just reminded me that like, as people, we are capable of so much more than we give ourselves, right? We give ourselves these natural limits that society told us. But if you choose and really make a commitment to something, like you're capable of literally anything. I mean, I hope I walk around as proof of that. So that's kind of been like my biggest takeaway. And now that I've, transitioned out of sports and I'm working in the corporate world, it feels like it's the same thing all over again. Is, just trying to figure out how do I get grounded here? But I have these reminders that, this proof and the tangible proof in the pudding that I can make this happen. So just trusting it as I climb another mountaintop.
That's amazing,
awesome.
man. This was great. And so we want to end it with like a little like quick hitter, 8 questions. We call it our Elite 8 of questions. So the first one. So both you and Jimmy Graham played for the U in hoops. I think he played how many years? He played a few years, right? Like 2 or 3.
4, or I think he did all.
Or he did all 4, but he did 1 football. Is that what it was?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. But I want to know, man, you guys both talk about dunking on people one-on-one, who would win in basketball?
Well, I'm going to say me 100 times over. I would
Okay.
never.
I didn't doubt it. I
I
didn't
would
doubt
never,
it.
ever give him that. Ever.
Have you guys ever played one-on-one?
No, we never have.
It's like a pay-per-view thing.
Yeah. But I would say it would be violent. I'd put it that way.
Well, I'm sure it would.
Absolutely.
I would love to see that.
Oh, yeah.
So the next one I have for you. Funniest teammate at Miami. There's a reason I'm asking this.
So there's a tie, for me at least. There's a tie.
Okay.
Between Malcolm Grant and Daquan Jones. There was never a moment in my 4 years I could be around them and keep myself together. Like every meeting, even every serious moment in the game, they just had something. They'd bring up something. They'd make a joke at somebody tripping over themselves or some little inside joke. Like literally in our team meetings, if I wasn't looking at the coach or looking at film because we sat in like a long runner of a table, and Malcolm was directly across from me, and then Malcolm was like off to the right, and Daquan was directly across me. So if something funny happened, he just kicked my foot, and then if I even looked at Malcolm would just like do one of the and like, oh my God, I'm done. I'm like sweating, I'm crying. Coach is like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, sorry, just something in my nose. Like it was so many times I was just having to deflect to just keep myself.
Malcolm is hilarious, and like I didn't want to because he was the first former Canes hooper that we had on. And then we had a few guys after, and so I always asked like who was the funniest dude, and like everyone will mention Malcolm. Yeah. That's hilarious. He'll randomly like I'll send him like a TikTok, or like he'll send me one. He always is making TikToks too. It's hilarious.
Yes.
But yeah, he's hilarious, and he's actually helped us a lot. So
he connected us. Yeah,
he connected us exactly. So he's been a big help to us, and he's a great guy, man, and he's always grinding, man.
Yeah, he is.
One of my
favorite people. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. So next one, favorite vacation spot.
So I just got back from one of the most epic weddings of my entire life.
Yeah.
I was at the one and only Mandarina, which is in Nayarit, Mexico.
Okay.
Please look it up. It's literally like they built a hotel in the middle of the jungle. Like there's animals running around. Like they told you if you didn't like they had these things that were like badgers, but they kind of look like raccoons. So if you don't close your doors, like they know how to open them.
Oh wow!
But it was for one of my closest and dear friends from Harvard Westlake. It was his wedding, and I was a groomsman in his wedding, and we literally just got back last night. And we're still like we can't believe what we just experienced in terms of just how beautiful not only the location, the venue, and my buddy's wedding was just like mind-boggling.
Well, your boy is looking for wedding venues, so I'm gonna have to look at that. I'm sure it probably won't be in my budget.
Yeah,
but yeah. So speaking of Mexico, I guess I got to alter this question. But I was gonna ask you better beaches, Socal or Miami?
Ooh, so for me, I have West Coast bias through and through. So
Okay.
I grew up going to Oceanside.
Oh yeah,
San
Oceanside's
Diego. That was like
beautiful.
the first beach, first time I ever rode a wave. And then when I went to Harbor Westlake, as many times as I could get to Santa Monica, Venice Beach, or Malibu, to me, they're unparalleled. Now, don't get me wrong, Miami's beaches are amazing. I love waves. I don't surf, I just boogie board, but just even growing up, just falling asleep to the sound of waves was like, it just felt like this, wow, this is life. So, yeah, I got a heavy bias.
Yeah.
Can't blame
So-
you. Can't blame you.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all either, man. I mean, there's some beautiful beaches in Southern California, especially San Diego area, like you
Yeah.
said. So it's yeah. But I gotta ask you, man, what is your worst vice?
Worst vice. I don't care what diet I've been on, whatever. I have an addiction to baked Cheetos or just chips for that matter. It doesn't matter what's going on. My fiance gives me a lot of hard times about it because if we have a bag of chips in the house, it's not that I'm having some, it's gone.
Give me your top 3 like power ranking of chips. Like what are your top?
Baked Cheetos is my number one.
Okay.
What's it? It's actually another cheddar one, but it's like cheddar Ruffles or Lay's.
Oh yeah, the cheddar
at the time.
Yeah.
And then just good old fashioned sour cream and onion Lay's. Those 3 right there. I mean, I could keep going on, but if I had to,
So basically, you're a Lay's fan, is what you're saying.
I am a Lay's fan, but I am a chips fan. They always get me.
I'm a sucker for that, like the munchie mix one, the one that has
dangerous.
It's super dangerous,
absolutely.
man. And your boy is trying to lose weight. He's not trying to eat all those chips, man. So
this is my other one here.
See, I like growing up, they had me hook, line, and sinker.
Every once in a while, I just gotta have it. I just gotta have it.
Okay. Next one. Best memory at Miami, like not athletic related.
Not athletic related.
Yeah.
Probably walking away. I would say either walking away with my degree because just a couple folks in my family had graduated from college, but it still just sounds, especially being a minority statistically, like that's just not going to happen. Or the likelihood is very low. And my goal is always to be an example for my family, for my community. So that was one. It happened so fast. Like I said, I was in Indianapolis so fast. I didn't get a chance to really wrap my head around it, but walking away with the paperwork and really fathoming, like I have a business degree was, by far one of the coolest things. And then just non-Miami related was just walking around on campus. I don't know if you guys have been there, but there's a lake in the middle of campus. It literally looks like a freaking resort. And there would be so many times, like, whatever, I'm hustling to class and I would just stop, like, I picked this place. They picked me. Wow.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, that used to happen a lot.
I don't know if you've ever been to Cal State Long Beach. That's where I went to school.
Yeah.
And going from that to Miami, I was like, damn, people go to college here?
Yeah.
This is like a resort.
Seriously, that was there'd be so many times with my friends and with my teammates that we just like couldn't believe that this is our daily deal.
That's crazy, man. Okay, 2 more. Sorry, we're
good. Let's keep it rolling.
out. It's all good. Okay. Which one do I want to go with first? Let's go with this one. Okay, so who's the one dude in the NBA right now that you could see playing tight end like at the NFL level? Like who has the physical qualities, you think?
Well, Zion would probably be the first person that comes to mind just because he does have a larger frame. A younger LeBron is an obvious given. And I think one that would actually, like, they don't really bring him up much, but someone that I actually think would be really good is Kawhi Leonard. He's got massive hands. His movability is fantastic, thinking like option and choice routes and all that kind of stuff. Yes, he's got a wiry frame, but he's somebody that I would think, given the dedication that we've all seen he has, he would be like a Travis Kelce type, I think, no doubt. And also, I will say last person, because I can't believe I didn't say him first, is Russell Westbrook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he would be Jalen Ramsey 2.0 or 1.1. I don't know. He'd be His ability is ridiculous. So whether he played offense or defense, I think he'd be just bad news for whatever team he's playing against.
Okay, let me flip it a little bit here, though. Is there any guy in the NFL you could see playing in the NBA? I know it's a little different because, skill set, body type, it's different.
Yeah. That is a good one. I know some of the receivers that I was around were better basketball players than I thought to give them credit to. I would say I would think someone like Stephon Diggs. Actually, let me take that back again. I got the pleasure of training with Devontae Adams these last couple of years. He's a damn good basketball player.
Really?
A really good basketball player. So Devontae, I think if he put the effort he put into basketball like he puts into football, I think Devontae would have had a legit shot to be a good guard in the league. Everything he does on the football field is indicative off the way he plays basketball. So yeah, and we've had a lot of discussions about that, and that's what makes him so lethal. So he's someone that would be my undoubted number one.
That's crazy. Okay.
All right, last one. Maddie, last one.
Yeah, last one. Really struggling to get these all out, man. But it's
all good.
Let me see. Okay, so who is the one dude growing up playing basketball that you looked up to? I think I kind of know the answer since you're from Southern California. But who's the one guy that you idolized in terms for basketball?
Yeah, so I'll give you a pro version and then a high school version. So obviously the Lakers were amazing. I grew up early as a Shaq fan. Kobe grew on me over time, but Shaq to me was larger than life. And the thing I enjoyed actually most about him was just how awesome he was off the court. Yeah. I thought, how does a person of that level of success and that level of stature also keep it light for all the people he interacts with? And I know we all see it today with the things that he does in broadcasting and in the community. But as a kid, seeing someone that was larger than life at the Forum at the time also be hilarious in all my favorite movies and all that stuff, I was like, this guy's got something. And then as I grew into the sport and saw Kobe blossom and the brilliant body of work that he put together when we all got a chance to experience him, was definitely the person that set the bar for me. And then the last person I was gonna say was actually a high school friend of mine. He's the biggest name you don't know about, which was a gentleman named Renardo Sidney. Had a little bit of a tough journey that took him out of sports, but I got a chance to play with him. I was on a team with him. He was 6'11", I'm not saying he's passed, but he was 6'11", 240, had almost a 45-inch vert. Played.
Oh, wow.
So he played point guard at Artesia High School, which is a high school that James Harden went to.
James Harden. Mm-hmm.
He was a better point guard than James Harden. That's why he played point. At 6'9", he was the perfect mix of Magic and LeBron. Freak athlete. So he was and I was on a team with him, Kawhi Leonard, Jordan Hamilton, who's another Southern California great, Derek Williams, another Southern California great.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of other folks that you probably haven't heard about, but we were on this team and I had never been around that caliber of athlete before. And Renardo was so much better than everyone else that it was just this dude, in my mind at the time, made LeBron look like he had no business being on a basketball court. That's how skilled he was at 17, 18 years old. So he was my walking around icon that I was actually training with every single day. And he kind of helped me to get over the hump to become dominant at Harvard Westlake. So yeah, he's another shout out to Renardo.
So that was AAU, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that was AAU.
Okay. That's wow. That's crazy. All the names. See, that's how it is in Southern California with the AAU teams. There's legit dudes that all know each other because they played on the same AAU team.
100%. Real quick, last story I'll share with you speaking of AAU, and I know we've gone way over, but
you're good.
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll talk as long as you want, honestly.
I'll give you guys this story as a send-off because I still find it hilarious. The one person in high school that just embarrassed me to levels I'm almost reluctant to share, but I got to share because it's just the reality. It's Klay Thompson. I did not know who he was. He went to Santa Margarita High School in Orange County. When you're in LA and you play schools in Orange County, you just feel like I'm tougher than them. He destroyed us. And like to the point, because in high school basketball in Socal is 4 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
In the first quarter of the game, the team went 16 for 16.
Oh.
They hit every single shot. He made like 14 of them, but he demolished us. And I didn't know he was athletic because he had been hitting threes. So he dunked on me worse than anyone has ever dunked on me in every stage of my career.
Oh, wow.
At the time, before we went into the game, a buddy of mine had played against him in NBA camp and said, like, yeah, he can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but he's nothing to worry about. Boy, was he wrong.
He's not a scout, is he?
No, he is not. And I took his scouting advice at face value, and let's just say it was not a good night for me.
Oh, that's fun.
That's crazy. I got to tell you, so you were a part. Sorry, I know I'm keeping you a long time, man.
Good.
Hopefully, wife doesn't get mad or anything.
No.
So you were on the Miami team that played against Purdue, right? In like 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
So one of my friends, he played at Purdue and was on that team. His name is Tyrone Johnson. He was a combo guard. He wasn't super athletic. He was more like highly skilled, good shooter and stuff.
Yeah.
So before I met him in a men's league in Anaheim Hills.
Oh, okay.
So we had a game, right?
Yeah.
And I get the word, hey, we're playing against some guy that played in college. And so I'm like, oh, dude, like he probably played D3, D2. Like he ain't shit. I'm going to drain it. I'm going to splash in his face. You know what I mean? I show up. He's wearing Purdue shorts. I see him across, the court. They point him out. And I'm like, that's weird. He's wearing Purdue shorts. Like, no way he went there.
Yeah.
Because he's 6'3". He's not like, guys, you can tell. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so game starts. He's not guarding me at all. I drain like 3 threes and, have a couple layups and stuff. He switches on to me. He locks into that Purdue defense. I didn't even touch the ball the rest of the game. And he has like 50.
Yeah, that's D1 for you. That sounds about right.
Yeah. And to keep in mind, this was like he played around that time, and he played overseas for like a year, so he was not in like the best shape. You know what I mean? He'll even say that too. I'm not, saying any jokes or anything. Still cooked me.
Yeah.
But then he joined your team this year, and you guys won the state.
And we won the championship, man.
There we go.
Can't beat him.
He got his ringer, so
I got my ring.
That's it.
That's amazing.
Yep. So, but yeah, man.
Eric, I can't thank you enough, man. I really appreciate you coming on our show and sharing your story with us and the fans. Is there anywhere that these guys can reach out? Anything you want to tell everybody?
Yeah, sure. So if you guys want to find me on social media, my IG handle is Superstar86. And I recently just got on with a health and wellness startup called Heroic. And basically everything that we're doing is catered to help folks be at their best all the time, which is very hard to do, with what we got going on with COVID. And not all the information out there is catered toward helping you strive to be the best version of yourself and for your community and for those around you. So I'm very thrilled to say I'm a part of our partnerships team, and I'm the head of sports there. Again, it's at heroic.us, and we have a free offering, currently going with our company optimize.me. And essentially what it is I call it like the Google of health and wellness. So if there's anything that you kind of want to learn about, get greater education on, essentially our company has some deep dive, whether it's book information or book adaptation or a deep dive on the topic through the lens of the positive psychology movement. Feel free to check us out. Again, it's free. It's at optimize.me. And I just want to thank you guys so much for having me on. This has been so much fun.
Our pleasure. And we're going to put the links for all that down in our description below so people can check it out for you.
Perfect. I really appreciate
Eric,
it.
There's one last thing I'm going to leave you with. I texted Julian Gamble. We had him on the show a few weeks back, and I totally forgot to bring this up earlier. But I was like, yo, is there anything funny? Is there anything you want to talk about? He's like, dude, that dude was so athletic. He was like, I remember this time he was he was kneeling down or like laying on his back, and he did a backflip seated or something on the ground, and I was like, damn.
So if you guys, it might be hard to find, but there's a clip. My senior year when we were playing against North Carolina, they get a breakaway fast break, a block a shot off the backboard, and I'm going so fast that I hit the pad underneath with my foot. And to what he's talking about, basically what I used to do on a basketball court, because I was just hyper focused. If I ever fell to my back, I would just lean back and do like a back handspring. And in that game, I block the shot, I land on the pad, I push back, I'm sliding on my back, I do a back handspring, sprint down, score like and one. It was like one of my big.
See, and that's what the
you might be
Broncos
able to find
scouts
that
saw.
clip. I have no idea, but that is just to give you a visual example. That is how that went.
That's what the
That is
NFL
amazing.
scouts saw, man.
Exactly.
That's it. That's all it took. Then we started calling.
Oh man.
Exactly.
Hey man, we really appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you on again sometime, man.
Awesome. I would love to be on with you guys moving forward. I really, really appreciate this.
Of course,
Thank you.
man. Have a good night, man.
All righty, I'll talk to
All
you
right,
guys.
and as always, go
Peace
about
out.
the you.
Always
Yes, sir.